You're listening to The Building Code, your guide for a better way to run your business. I'm Tom Houghton.
Hey, Tom. I'm Paul.
Hey, Paul. Great chatting with you over Zoom here.
Yeah, I thought we'd kind of keep it a little more casual.
Sure.
In the intro. I haven't seen you in a while, both physically and virtually.
Exactly.
It's been weird.
Yeah, it's the sign of the times, right?
Yeah. I wonder when we're going to look back on this and everybody's just going to, lament about how weird it was. When did it officially start? So we got to make sure we have the parameters. March of 19 or March of 20, sorry.
Yeah.
March 2020. It's going to be a weird period.
It's felt like a year to you.
It has. It's felt I'm sure everybody feels this way. It's felt like it's a very long time.
Yeah. 8 weeks,
of course,
basically.
I guess we're talking about COVID-19. So if you listen to this in the future.
If it's the year 2022 and you're listening to this and you
forgot about it,
then well
fantastic.
Done. Well done to you.
Because I don't think any of us are going to forget it.
No way. Awesome.
Well, anywho.
Yeah, back to what we're here for. We're here for our great guest. Joining us today is Stacy Eakman, president of Eakman Construction, based in Washington. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Can I also point out how excited you were to say the word Washington? Is this state hold a place in your heart, Tom? You want to tell the listeners about that for some reason?
Well, as far as this pandemic goes, it was kind of a hot spot of the pandemic. So I thought this is actually
Seattle. Yeah, it was.
Great.
And I actually live in Kirkland, where it's right outside of Seattle, but that's where that original nursing home was that the big outbreak happened. It was within 5 miles of my house. So
wow,
we were the center of attention for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
I mean, it's a bummer that's what we were being recognized for. But the only other thing anybody talks about is how much it rains. So at least we're in the headlines for something else.
There you go. Yeah, I love Seattle. I went there for a short honeymoon. My wife we just went back in October of last year. It's good times
for a concert, right?
Went for a concert. Yeah,
that came up on the other podcast that we were chatting about. That was podcast 50 something.
Yeah, hardcore OG listeners they'll know that.
They'll know the reference. Yeah. Go find it. Bonus points for you if you find it.
Yeah, we'll send you some sort of prize.
Yeah.
If you can guess the band.
Yeah.
Anyways, I guess Stacy, well, it's very timely that you had mentioned you're from Kirkland, Washington. Why don't we just start there, Tom? You can correct me. You usually do this, but why don't we start there? I mean, it's COVID-19, it's pandemic. We're in the midst of it. What was it like for your business, but also for the town during sort of that attention, that spotlight you guys had?
I mean, for the town, it was, I think so. Seattle, the Northwest in general is pretty science focused. So a lot of people have been paying attention to this early. When we actually had the very first reported case in the United States in Everett, and so once that happened, we all kind of started paying really close attention, and I believe that was in February even. And so we started really paying close attention and kind of preparing and planning on a shutdown and all of that. And, we were okay, and everybody follows the rules here pretty well. A lot of our big, a lot of the companies here are, obviously Google has a huge presence here. Amazon is here. Microsoft's here. Boeing's here. Facebook has a big presence here. So they all have the ability to work from home. And so the smaller companies that have office space like us, we kind of followed their lead. And so I remember Google really early went to a work from home option. And as the next day we did that at Eakman Construction as well. Now the guys in the field continued to work, but they were outside, they're in their own truck. So they were able to social distance pretty well. But the office staff, we all went to work from home. And so, it obviously affected us some, but, we did fine. And then when the big actual shutdown happened, where they closed construction, closed all business unless it was essential, we were disappointed because a lot of the country continued to call residential construction was still essential work. So in California, they were getting to still, be on construction sites. And so we were all planning that was going to happen. And when the governor came on and told us that we were non-essential, that changed our plans. We weren't really planning on shutting down. We were planning on working from home and being extra careful. But then, we had 48 hours to close all our job sites down. And we did that. Obviously, it was difficult for our clients. People are renting houses and paying 2 mortgages while we're building their homes. And, that's a tough spot to be in, to tell your client. But at the end of the day, we flattened the curve, and now construction's back open here. And so, we're pushing forward.
Was that transition to open back up difficult, or what were some of the things you had to tackle to do that?
Yeah, so I followed our agencies, our construction building agencies here in the Washington are very vocal and involved in government, kind of like with anywhere, right? Master Builders Association and a few others. And so I followed them, and I was continually getting email updates from them. And so I was watching pretty close because the way they got construction to be the first ones to open back up, they went to the governor's office with a plan of how we were going to do it safely. And so as those plans were being made and bounced off the governor and continually negotiated, I was watching those closely. So for us in particular, we had all our PPE. I ordered all that stuff and got loaded up on masks and hand sanitizer and all of those things, and gloves and glasses, and then wash stations. There was a huge shortage in the country of wash stations, so we ordered parts from our plumbing supply house, and we made our own that just hook up to a garden hose. And so we were prepared to open. It's not the smoothest thing, right? Like getting all your subcontractors to follow the rules and wear the masks and not get reported, and neighbors taking pictures if you're not wearing your mask. So it's intensive management of people, and there's new protocols with the masks and all of that, but then also you have to stay 6 feet apart. And sounds fairly easy, but when a couple of guys got to hang a bank of cabinets, and all of a sudden you're like, well, we can't stand 6 feet apart. What do we do? And so you got to figure out how to do it. And so the inefficiencies are there, are showing through, and it's a little bit inefficient, but we're grateful to be open and doing it. We also have to, every time somebody comes on site every day, we have to take their temperature. We have to record their temperature. We have to write their name, phone number, email down, which isn't the hugest deal because we're there monitoring all of it anyways. But some subcontractors, they just don't want their some employees of the plumbing company or electricians or whatever that they feel like Big Brother's watching, and so it's constant management of those people. But I'm not complaining. I'm glad to be open.
Yeah, contact tracing is one of those things that I think is probably coming down the pike for every local area, like especially on the job site. Are you using daily logs for that? Because I know other companies are using our daily log feature just to record who is on the job site and use the custom drop down to check off the subs that were there or something like that.
We aren't using the drop down, but we're taking a photo of our handwritten sheet that we use every day on each job site, and we're putting that in each daily log.
Yeah.
Interesting times we live in, for sure. I love that you're making do with it. You're just keep moving on, got a positive attitude about it, and I think that's the best you can do with what we're given right now.
Yeah, and ultimately, I decided a few weeks ago, everybody is so frustrated and it's just complain about the current situation. And I just said, hey, look, let's take this really bad thing that's a burden to, our efficiency and all of that, and like, let's turn it into a marketing opportunity. And so we just went out and said, okay, we're going to be the best at being safe, and we're going to be a good neighbor. Everybody's at home. Like, people see us on job sites. They see our vans pull up. When we get out of that van, we want to have our face masks on. We don't want to be the one that gets reported to the government. And so, we're sending out postcards and a lot of social media stuff about, how we're safe and we're going to take care of you. Our thing is, we're your neighbor. We're not just a construction company in town, we're your neighbor. So that puts kind of a target on our back a little bit, right? Like, people are saying, okay, especially other companies that aren't following the rules. They're like, oh, this guy wants to brag about how great he is. We're going to drive by and catch him. But luckily, my team is really, really participating and, playing along. So.
You
are social media.
Yeah, I was just going to go there, Paul. You're pretty active on there on Instagram. If our listeners, we'd highly recommend you follow Eakman. How do they find you?
Instagram, it's at Eakman_construction. LinkedIn, it's my personal LinkedIn, Stacy Eakman, Eakman, and Facebook is just Eakman Construction, and that's where we're on TikTok, but we're I don't even know my tagline there yet, but we've made a commitment
but you're there.
to get there and get that going. So we are on TikTok, and you can probably find me if you look close enough. You'll find me.
We'll put a link to those in the show notes as well. You can find the show notes at buildertrend.com/podcast. So make sure you give Stacy and his team a follow there. And let's talk about TikTok. Let's take a quick deviation. What was it that made you jump on the platform?
I'm a huge Gary V follower. I believe in what he says about, I think that Gary knows a lot about a lot of things, and he believes he knows a lot more about a lot more things than he probably even does. I mean, he's a real confident guy, but if he knows something, in my opinion, he knows how people react to social media. So he started talking about TikTok, a year ago or whatever it was. And I got an account and I started following, and I thought, man, how, like everybody, you're like, I'm going to start dancing now and I'm going to do all this weird stuff. But the reality is you don't have to do it like everybody else. You can do it very similar to Instagram, just more videos, and then it just is attention. I don't want anybody, in my opinion, these people that are on TikTok now, that I think the majority are probably younger folks in their 20s, right? Early 20s. They might not be building a house now, but someday those people are going to build a house. And if TikTok is the platform that they've chosen to be their number one platform, then when they go to look for a contractor in 10 years, if I'm not there and don't have a decent following and good engagement and all of that, then I lose some credibility. Because the 20-year-olds that are starting construction companies, they're going on TikTok, right? So I don't want to miss the boat. And right now, attention is cheap and easy, and it's free. There's no cost to just gain that following. So you just want to get that group of following there early when it's easy, because as we all know with Instagram, as the algorithms get more and more difficult, and Facebook with, everything getting more and more difficult. And when they're trying to monetize more, which makes it a little harder to be visible to people that don't already know you, it starts to get harder. So you want to get in early when there's a lot of eyes. So that's why we're committing to that.
It's good stuff. Maybe we could give a quick background on your company, just because obviously, if somebody doesn't know, if they're not following you on TikTok yet, they should, but maybe you can give them a quick little rundown of, give us how many projects you guys do, what's your team look like?
We are a custom home builder, large scale remodel company, based in Seattle, Washington. And we kind of our thing is we're a little more high touch, customer focused than a lot of other companies. So, what that means is our project managers are, quality human beings, more personal with the client, a lot of communication, which we use Buildertrend for. I mean, it's really helped us with that. But, the typical, the way our company runs is there's me who does mostly sales, and runs the company. And then we have general manager, and production manager is Jake. He's kind of my right hand. And then we have, a small design team, but we're architect driven. We're not a design build firm. And then we have project managers, carpenters, or lead carpenters, and laborers. We do some in-house, but I think, it's probably about 80% of our stuff is subcontracted out. We do depending on the size of the projects, usually between 10 and 14 projects at once is what we have going. Our average project size is, about $650,000. So what that really means is we do some that are quite a bit more than that, but we do quite a few projects that are just a couple $100,000, especially for past clients, and stuff like that. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's how we do it.
That's a good rundown. I like that you mentioned the past clients there, because obviously that means then they've had a good relationship. You want to continue that relationship with them, and there's value in that for you, right? And how you treat them and continuing that relationship with them.
Yep. We sell to people that are one of two things. They're either they've hired us before and they trust us, believe in us, they trust the experience, or we sell to, I think the majority of our clients are people who have done large projects in the past, but with other companies, where they've gone out and they've gotten 3 bids and they picked the most affordable one, and it turned out to be the same cost as the most expensive one by the end, and they didn't have a great experience. We try hard to not only sell the experience, but deliver on the experience of the project. So we often get people who have had a terrible experience in the past. They come to us for their next project, which I think is, says a lot about who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do they get that message? When you look at lead gen, can you just kind of take us through, if you guys look this deep, sort of where your sources are coming from? So like what percentage is re-wins or past clients, and what percentage is new?
Well, since we do I don't have the exact numbers, but since we do such large scale projects for the most part, past clients, they're not that many. But every past client who does another project, they work with us again. But we figure that they won't be ready for us for another house build or another remodel for 5 to 10 years at the earliest. So we do get some of that, but I think 90% of our leads come from architects. So really, who my customer is when I'm out trying to drum up leads, it's architects. So the way we continue to keep architects, in our back pocket is they recommend us to a client. We provide a really good experience for that client. And then of course they're telling their architect, it was great. We try our best to make the architect look good. Never throw the architect under the bus. We understand that they are our client, right? So that's how we continue to get leads is I work the architects hard.
I would just assume you would just bribe them. But no.
It's a little tougher than that. When I first started, when I first started and I wasn't doing the cool projects I wanted to do, like I knew a couple of architects that were kind of my friends, a little bit. And I mean, a couple of times I just asked, like, do guys just pay you to send work? And the answer was no, and it was kind of almost offensive to them. So I quit bringing it up, right? So, I think that ultimately, especially in our market where there's plenty of work to be done. Really what those architects want is they want to know that if they send a client to me, I'm going to take care of them. They're going to have a good experience, and we all get a referral out of that later. We get, the architect was great and the builder was great. That's where the value is to those architects.
Yeah. On a serious note, so if you're listening to this right now and you're trying to build relationships with architects, what would you give them as far as starting points and tips to do that?
To get kind of going, I did a lot of undesirable projects. So I would stop by architects' offices that I really wanted to work with, and it takes more than one time stopping by, more than one phone call. You just stay just on the tip of their tongue. Don't let them forget you. And then at some point, they get to a spot where, every architect has their 3 or 4 contractors that they like to work with all the time. And so the way you get into that is you have to be the contractor that's not only available, but willing to do a project that maybe one of their other contractors aren't willing to do. And so you just stay at the top of mind so that when they have that basement dig out that their big time builders don't want to do, or they were all just too expensive and the client can't do it, or they're just too busy, it almost always happens on that phone call where they say, oh, hey, you know what? I actually do have something you can look at. No, I can't find anybody to do it, or my other guys are too busy. And then that is your chance, and you show up on that project, and you're probably, likely to not make the margins you should make. But I mean, that is the cost of marketing to that architect, is he has, maybe he's in a bad spot. Maybe he's told the client that, yeah, I think you can get this done for $400,000, and all the builders are saying, there's no way. Now, I don't ever recommend intentionally losing money. Don't lose money, but you might have to sacrifice a little bit just to really show up and gain that spot with the architect. I've done that, many times in my career. As we take on a job that nobody else really wants for whatever reason, and you have to put the challenge with that is you have to put your project manager, your kind of superstar project manager, on that job instead of on the job that is going to just, we're going to kill it on, supposedly, you have to pull him off of the really good job and put him on a job that is not quite as attractive or sexy. But, that's how you get them. Because then the architect's like, wow, that was great. That was a great experience. And then, then you're on that list, somebody else.
That's awesome. That's great advice. It makes sense. So, do some cold calling and cold stopping by to start, introduce yourself, make sure you present yourself the right way. Did you ever think about, your brand, in those early days, how you present yourself to somebody, this is who I am, and this is how I'm unique in construction? Or was it just, I'm here ready to do quality work for you?
No. So, I mean, yes and no. Thinking about my brand, no, not necessarily. But I understood that there's kind of a disconnect in construction with communication and being very organized and having everything put together. Now, looking back on the first time I walked into, I remember a architect that we work with a lot now is Ryan Rose Designs. They do really cool stuff, and we do a lot of their work. And I remember the first time I walked into their office, looking back on it, it's laughable. I showed up with a project binder that, had it was before we were Buildertrend. It was before I was, I was building fences and decks, I was barely just getting going. But I had a binder built that I was using as a project binder, and it had quotes and estimates and all the information in there. And I went in there and showed him on his desk, and I was really proud of it. I thought it was really, really cool. And I can imagine, I mean, it's a nice architect's firm. I can imagine when I walked out of there, they were like, huh, that guy, who's he? I was a kid. But then another call and another call and another call, and I ended up doing a basement dig out for them that has been the client loved it. They had a great experience, the architect, and since then, I've worked with Ryan for, years now, a lot of their work. So it's really just putting yourself out there and trying, just trying. And maybe you look kind of funny at first and people think you're not ready. And ultimately, like, that is also happens a lot or used to happen a lot is I'd talk to these architects and they'd say, man, you're not really ready for this type of project, but stay in touch and I'll be watching you, and now, I work with those people because now we're ready. And at the time, of course, I was like offended, right? Like, no way I can do it. But looking back, like, thank goodness I didn't get some of those jobs. I would have fallen on my face. We wouldn't be here now. So
yeah. That's great. That's great insight. I mean, that's very valuable for people who are at that stage right now, which I think, there's always a revolving door of new construction companies starting up, and there's no real good game plan out there or playbook. So that's one that I would follow.
I think the thing that everybody needs to remember when they're doing that is the time to get new architects and to find those new leads is when you don't need them. It's when everybody is really, really busy, because that's when they go to a new guy or a new company because their go-tos are too busy. If you wait until you're slow and the economy slows a little bit, it's too late, because those 3 or 4 companies that they've worked with in the past, they're available. So they just don't need it. So making the time, which is a real challenge for you when you're small, because when you're small, as the owner, you're doing so much that you don't feel like you have time to put a clean pair of jeans on and like a decent shirt, because you've been like crawling around under a house, trying to dig it out or whatever you're doing. You don't feel like you have time to like stop by in the middle of the day of an architect's office, find somewhere to park in the city of Seattle. Like, it seems like a daunting task. And then to think, I'm just going to go in there and what am I going to get out of this? It can really wear you down, but the time to do it is when it's really similar to like borrowing money. You go to the bank and ask for money when you don't need it, because when you need it, you're not attractive to lend to, right? Like, you want to secure those relationships when things are really busy.
It's the long game. Yeah. That's good. Exactly. I'm curious, speaking of long game, so give us more background here. Your father was general contractor. Did you end up taking over the business?
No, that's not the case. So I'm from Eastern Washington originally. I'm from Yakima, Washington. Dad was a contractor there, but was his own deal. Not I started my own when I moved over here to Seattle. So the answer to that question is no, but I did grow up around construction and spent, some time on job sites. Not, I played a lot of sports, and so I was really busy. And Dad was determined that I would not become a contractor. Life's too hard. It's a struggle. You need to go to school. You need to, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't learn a lot about construction as a kid, other than, we were always building something around the house, and, I would help with that. But then when I got a little older, I think it was after I got done at community college, I moved back home and started working for Dad. So I was, early 20s. I worked for Dad for a few years, and then moved over here to Seattle when I was 28, 29, and had no intention of starting a construction company. I actually moved over here to not do construction. And then next thing you know, I was doing fences and decks for friends on the weekends, and ended up kind of getting myself in a weird predicament with a big project that I took on through a girl that I knew from church. And I didn't necessarily tell her that I was I didn't tell her that I was like a contractor, but I also didn't really tell her completely that I was just like working for cash. And so she introduced me to her dad, who turns out, is a big name here in the city. And he had a project that he needed done at his house. And I sent him an estimate and didn't really hear from him. And I had given him a business card that said that I had made, that just little Kinko's business card that said Eakman Construction on it. And he called me like on a Tuesday and said that they were going to Italy for 3 weeks, and he wanted me to come and do the work while he was gone. And I said, okay, great. And he said, I'll leave a deposit check on the counter, keys under the mat. I said, okay, great. And I went there to pick up that deposit check and get started. And the check was written to Eakman Construction instead of to Stacy Eakman. So I had to get a business license. I didn't want to look, I didn't want to look foolish. So I hustled and got a business license and got it all figured out. And then once I had done that, it was like, well, I'm here now, let's give it a shot. So it just kind of happened.
That's a great story.
That is a great story. Just got to go with it.
And I mean, if we had more time, I was at a point in my life where I wasn't the best citizen and had not necessarily paid all my bills and done everything I was supposed to do in my past. It was pretty rough, and getting that business license was a challenge. Getting a bank account, I remember getting a bank account was just almost impossible. And I mean, I was literally in tears, like, I'm screwed. I can't, it's not going to work. And walked into one more bank and met somebody and told them everything I'd done. Like, I was like just spent, I tried all day to get somebody to give me a bank account. And the guy said, well, I'm the vice president of the bank. Lucky I'm in town, and I can fix this for you, but we're going to go over here and I'm going to tell the assistant manager here to pull your name up. And if you lied to me about anything, you don't have a chance. And pulled it up. And I mean, it was just as bad as I told him it was. And he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a savings account, no checks, no nothing. You do that for 6 months without screwing that up. We'll give you a checking account with a debit card, and then another 6 months we'll give you checks in a company account. And I did that, and I mean, they're still in my bank today. I would never leave that bank.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
It was quite a time in my life.
So starting off like that, fast forward all the way to today, getting named Pro Remodeler 40 Under 40 Award. That's quite the success story there.
Yeah, it's been 7 years since that happened, so it's been quite the sprint. I've been going, and 40 Under 40 Pro Remodeler. It was really cool to be named there. I think office manager nominated me, and when I get those awards, it's exciting. It feels really good, and I think really the reason it feels good is because it kind of looks like, okay, you started this thing in 2012 and you're just like kind of by accident got a business license, and then you went and built some fences and decks, and then it just grew. You rode the wave. But I mean, I put a lot of still now, but not as much as I used to. But I mean, I put a lot of long nights, all night work all day in the field, and then got to do estimates and got to look at contracts and got to do all the banking and got to do all the books, and just lots of long nights. And so when I get one of those awards, it just is a little bit, I don't know, it just kind of justifies all that time I put in. And, my wife is great. She lets me work. She knows I'm passionate about this and passionate about business. And so she just lets me work as much as I want, as much as I need to. And so, it kind of validates what I'm doing when I get one of those awards. So it's nice to be recognized like that. But yeah, it's been, it's kind of surreal that things have happened the way they have.
Absolutely. Well, it's quite the incredible story there, and I'm sure we could.
I feel like we only got a little bit of it.
I know. I feel like we could continue
back.
talking. Yeah, absolutely. We should definitely bring you back on in a couple months just to see how things are going after post-COVID. Once we get back to quote unquote the new normal, and then just check out to hear more stories.
Sure. Yeah.
Anytime. Well, thanks so much for sharing your expertise and insight in the industry and just what's happening up in your area with our listeners. Of course, we appreciate you coming on the podcast, being a part of the Buildertrend family, and wish you continued success in your business.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on. You guys are, it's a cool thing that you do, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Stacy.
Thanks, man. We appreciate you.
Love what you heard? Don't forget to rate and subscribe to our podcast so you can hear from more guests that will benefit your business. Also, please check out our show notes page for more information on what we discussed on this episode. You can find it at buildertrend.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Building Code. Appreciate you.